Wicked,
My
wicked.
brother,
What is going on, bro? What is going on?
I am good. I'm good. I'm happy to see your name. All I see is Growth Brown.
That's it. That's it. First, that's typical 5 minutes before the podcast. What shall I
Yeah.
be today?
Yeah.
I've got, I've
This,
got,
this
I've
is a,
got.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say, man, that's a big one. All I see is growth. It's like shut out everything else. All I see is
That's
growth.
that's the one, man. There's a few inspirations for this, right? So remember, Ben Askren, right? He had that wrestling
Yep.
match with a guy called Jordan Burroughs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I didn't know much about Jordan Burroughs, but when that was happening, I went and
Mm.
searched him on Instagram, and his Instagram handle is all I see is gold because he just
Right.
smashes it when he gets into tournaments and competitions.
Yeah.
He's just that guy. Like it's like first place is his. You can come second, I don't care, but I'm
Yeah.
gold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So his handle is all I see is gold, and I kind of spun off that this week, and I thought, you know what, all I see is growth right now, and
Yeah, boy.
that's a happy place to be. I'm thankful to be there. I was gonna go with home stretch Brown because
Mm.
of we've kind of linked the last two back to Ramadan and
Yeah.
fasting and the end of Ramadan in probably a week's time. Probably
Yeah.
Friday or Saturday might be the last one, last day of the month. Um, but then I thought last minute I was like, nah, I'm gonna be all I see is growth Brown. So that's where that's come from. And to be fair, it's been a good week. Clients have done really well. Studies wise, it's going good. So yeah, and training's going good. So all I see is growth.
Fantastic, man. It's like that also reminds me of Wu-Tang as well. Cash rules everything around me, cream. I'm like, this growth rules everything around me,
That's
cream.
it, bro. That's it. That's the t-shirt for this week. If you want the
Yeah,
t-shirt for this, that's what we should start doing. That t-shirt for the podcast and be like
exactly.
limited edition. I got a number six. I got a number six.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. I got another six one. Last week it was fine all the time. This week,
Yeah.
this week is going to be growth rules everything around me.
Love it. Love it.
That's epic,
That's the
man.
first one, man. Yeah, bro. So that's kind of been that's been the underlying tone of the week, regardless of like I said last time, feeling hungry, feeling tired, feeling kind of in a mental state which is like, okay, I feel myself slowing down this week. I do
Okay.
genuinely feel like I've I feel the end of kind of the month, and that's
Mm.
always the case. Like I didn't lose any weight up for the first like 2 weeks, and then this week I went from 106 ish to 102 point something. So like
Okay.
it's been a big kind of drop off this week. Well, the
Yeah.
most notable drop off, and I feel that I feel kind of a bit like more slight, a bit more like oh shit, I'm feeling more labored in the evenings.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to work, and it's like oh shit, I just feel tired now. I want to sit down. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, that's kind of the just to kind of frame the week and how I felt. But still, regardless, it's like just push through, man. It felt good.
Yeah. Wicked. So is it like it's like weight that you're losing, which you don't want to lose, basically. It's not like you've lost excess fat. It's more like you
Uh,
just slimming down a little more than you'd like to be at.
yeah, I think both. I think both, bro, because still trained most days, still done cardio most days. Been more active. I think I've done more steps this week actively. Like I wanted to. I've wanted to work into my schedule, getting out there and doing some walking. I feel it's good for my head. I feel it's good for just being alone, kind of walking and clearing your mind, getting in touch with your body again, taking steps and just feeling like left foot, right foot, and just kind of being right there and then. So as a result of doing that, you drop a bit more weight. But
Mm.
yeah, man, it's all good. It's all good. I made this decision this week that I'll be fasting once a week, every week, like from here on. Like
Okay.
I want to feel this like this uh feeling. I just want to have a reminder of this feeling every week to be like, okay, on this day you're not going to have any food and water. You're just going to go through it, and it's not going to obviously it's a couple of hours. Like the real kick in the teeth is the fact that you do it for a whole month. That's hard, but
Mm.
doing it for a day is not that difficult. But the win I think is the reminder of how I feel right now. I don't want to lose this feeling. I don't want to move out of this month and then like forget the lessons I've learned in this month. And I've said that a few times to clients this week that I've seen and my mom and TJ and whatever. And I'm saying it here now, like I've been put through some good thoughts this month. I don't want to lose them. So my
Mm.
answer to that is like I can revisit it by getting myself back into a mental state where okay, today again you're fasting, you've got no food, you've got no water, figure it out. Like don't feel
Mm.
down, don't feel beat up, don't feel kind of lethargic. Do it anyway. And yeah, that's just a thought I've had.
Yeah, amazing, man. So what kind of lessons you say you want to retain?
I think the main one, well, one of the main ones is that less is more. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
having less in the way of distraction. We went over this, I think, in the fourth podcast. I think we've done this ever consistently now for a couple of Sundays. The fourth podcast being like, you have less on your plate in literally there's nothing on
Yeah.
my plate,
Yeah.
nothing in my cup, nothing in my plate. And
Yeah.
it's good, it's more, man, it's more because it gives you time to be more focused in other ways. It inspired that Instagram IG story that I did, which was
Mm.
is Ramzan a time where you can fall in love with your training even more? And I
Mm.
100%, having gone through it this year and done it in a way that I think suits me well, which is to just not think about it too much, just do it. Um, Having less on your plate is kind of, sorry, the point of the point of the post was to say, usually we use food and water, and we use that occasion around food, and we have it a couple of times a day, and usually you'll get like a emotional kind of high from that, right? And
Mm.
right now that's lacking, and we don't have that. We don't have any kind of, until it's very deep in the evening, and even then you don't even feel like eating. You feel, eat two bites and it kind of goes. So how do you sustain feeling positive, feeling happy? How do you sustain yourself at this time, right? And one of the ways that I've always done that is through training. So
Mm.
if training is really one of the only ways that I can go to anytime, I can get up, move my body and feel good about it. That's the only way I'm getting that feeling of happiness right now, that kind of
Mm.
dopamine hit. Um, so really, I'm getting much more, because training is the only thing I can do right now. One of the only things I can do right now to feel that feeling. That's where that came into. I can fall in love with my training even more right now because it's really the
Mm.
only thing I have to
Yeah.
go to for that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Amazing.
So that's it,
Yeah.
man. That's it. That less is more is really really hit home right now. And that, like, back in line with your question, I don't want to go out of this month and start feeling like um, I've got a kind of an abundance of things. I want to try and get the most from the least. You know what I mean? I don't want to kind of just look to the next thing and look to the next thing. I want to just consolidate and be like, okay, I don't want too much on my plate, but I want to take the most out of it every time.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I see that, man, because I really liked what you said in the post as well, because I don't think it's just relevant for people who are on Ramzan. I think it's relevant for everyone, especially now as well, because it's in a way you could argue is like, people are fasting in a different way. It's like there's a lot of
Mm.
external inputs which are not there anymore in this period. So where are you getting your sustenance from? Which is what you've said before. How are you sustaining yourself? And I think so. I think what you said was actually, I watched it and I was like, this is applicable to everyone. It's like everybody could watch this and realize that you have an opportunity now to appreciate the things around you that you already have, and to like practice gratitude around those few things, and realize that things ain't that bad in a lot of ways for a lot of people. But at the same time, if they ain't great, then having that practice of appreciating what you got and practicing less is more will actually help you set yourself up for a better future as well, because you're being more appreciative is helpful for you to see the bigger picture. So I thought that was a super useful post
Mm.
overall, rather than just for Ramzan as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good chat, man. I like how you've kind of taken it and run with the wider implication of it. And it's so true. It's
Mm.
so true. And I think a lot of people would benefit. And we'll talk to clients right now, and luckily I'm working with a lot of great people, and they're all of that kind of mindset where they've really enjoyed this
Mm.
time, and
Yeah,
they've just said
amazing.
that, you know what, it's such a like a blessing in disguise. Obviously,
Hmm.
there is a lot of sadness right now.
Yeah.
Um, However, it's just, again, it's like the same thing. Like every mushroom cloud has a silver lining, right? You can kind
Mm.
of you can take a lot from it if you choose to change your perspective.
Mm. Exactly. And yeah, that's a big part of it is perspective. Is
Hmm.
if you have the perspective that everything is awful, then congratulations, that's what you're going to invite on yourself. Whereas if you switch your perspective to, you know, okay, here's an opportunity, I can do everything better, and then, you know, wait and observe opportunity kind of fall in your lap as well. You know, just you make whatever you make of it what you can. And
So all I see
that's
is growth, baby.
All I see is growth, baby.
All I see is growth. That's it, man. Like just that's it. That's made the name choice even happier for me now. I'm just like, yep, exactly. you gotta just that's like, it's a choice, eh? It's a choice. Like you can have all the tough time, but then, like, for instance, like David Goggins, sometimes he cites like those tough times are the ones where it's like the analogy he uses in his book is that he's like having a sword and putting it in the fire, and then that sword's burning. You're that sword going through the tough time, and then you take the sword out of the fire, and the next thing is it gets smashed with a hammer. It's like, oh shit, I'm getting smashed now. But really, at the end of it, like, you have a really solid, unbreakable kind of weapon there, and that weapon is yourself. You know what I mean? You can use yourself to go through these tough times, and you can see that you're getting beaten on, you're getting kind of tortured with heat, or you can see that you're hardening to things, and that you're becoming that weapon. And that's the benefit, man. And I think if you see that, then you invite these things more and more. You look for them, and that's why, linking back to why I'm gonna fast at least a day a week after this, is like I want to invite that time, like invite the tough time in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Become the weapon of. I love that. That is fantastic. Become the weapon. Yeah, that's a nice weapon, man. That's a nice way of looking at it. Is you're getting hammered, or what's it going to turn you into afterwards? You know, what's it going to make of you? How do you envisage implementing it on a weekly basis?
I think at the end of the week, I'm going to try. I'm going to have a week of kind of normality, and then I'm going to just drop in. So this is a cultural thing that I didn't really know much about. Not cultural, sorry, religious thing that I didn't know much about. That we have. There is 6 fasts that you do after the month finishes. So the month is actually called Ramzan. And then, so the month is called Ramzan, but we fast during the month of Ramzan. Then after the month, it goes into the next calendar month, which I don't really know what it's called. I think it's called Shawwal. I think it's called Shawwal, but I don't know if that's the month. I think it is, actually. And then, so in that month, you're not supposed to, but it's not a hard and fast rule. Like it's like, if you choose to, there is also like 6 fasts you can do across that whole month. So my mom usually just knocks them out one day after the next and just kind of gets them all done after Ramzan. But this is the first year that I'll be doing those as well. But I think I'll stagger them through the month and do 2 here, do 1 there, do 2 here, whatever. But not really thought about it too much. I think I need to just, when I feel least like doing it, I'm going to do it. That's I feel really tired. Bang, I'm fasting too.
Yeah.
Let's have that as well.
Fantastic. Become the weapon, man. Become the weapon.
Just see the growth, man. See, all you see is growth. All you'll be is a weapon, man.
Yeah, that's like you asking to be put through the fire. That's just like, when I least want to do it, I'm going to put myself through the fire. Here I come.
I think that's so necessary, right? Because like we've talked about this a lot in terms of our parents and how they unintentionally or like unwillingly were put through tough shit, right? Sorry, I've said that wrong. Not that they were unwilling, they were just in tough shit. Like that was their life. You know what I mean? They didn't have any choice in it. And they willingly moved forward through it, and they kind of had kids, and they moved up the property ladder, and all these things that are just crazy tough in a place where they didn't speak the language and whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's not easy. But where are they now? You know what I mean? Like they're really, really set the space for us. So I think if we can have a very easy existence, and I think I see this a lot with like people that are close to me. Sometimes they have a very, very just docile, right? You can kind of get by and be okay and feel okay and earn a living and make sure you got a healthy bank account and you got a car and hire purchase and you're chilling, right? But really, you don't. What is the growth in that? There is no growth in that. Then what kind of seeds are you sowing for your kids and whatever? You know what I mean? You need to seek out the difficulty.
Yeah, it's like it's basically, what are your values? Are you living those values? And that's the key thing, because alignment, Is if you're not in alignment, it's
Mm,
gonna bite you in the ass one day, man. You got
too
that
right, man.
low grade level of frustration in your life that just kind of bubbles. Yeah. So yeah, just make sure you're living up to the values that you well, even if you don't have any, it's probably a good time to start thinking about them. If you're not sure what they are, it's a good time to start thinking about them, because it's the kind of stuff that defines you and makes you want to makes you live life the way you want to live it. Basically,
Mm,
I think that's the key thing. And so you can just coast along because it's so easy to do that. And our day and age is like we've kind of, in a lot of cases, got our base needs taken care of. And if we got our base needs taken care of, then it's like, okay, we can just coast along. We don't really have to think too much about what we got to do. But
mm,
also, yeah, you have to, in your case, is like the way you're doing it is kind of willfully put yourself through the fire a little bit, so that is this what I actually want, or do I want something? Do I want something else? Do I see myself doing something, living more meaningfully? I think that's an important thing to ask yourself. It's uncomfortable, but it's if you do it, you're better off, and you can handle more discomfort than most people.
And you just learn about yourself, right? You learn about
Yeah.
yourself, and like you said, you know when you look in the mirror what feels right and what
Mm.
doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And if something doesn't feel right, you got to check that right now, because
Hmm.
like life will just keep happening and happening and happening, and you'll be years before you really check it. And I've seen this with people that are really close to me, like, and have been very close to me. That there's on the more it's like it's the same, back to the same thing as we always talk about, right? The wolves you feed, and
Mm.
you can unconsciously feed that wolf. You know what I mean? You can
Mm.
unconsciously feed that wolf, and it's like if you're not doing good reps, you're just doing bad reps, right? Because
Yeah.
you're doing something every day regardless. And if that something isn't, like you said, in alignment, and if you don't even know what alignment looks like for you, then just take this time, man. Take this time, because right now a lot of life has kind of just been dialed back. You've
Mm.
not got the pace, you've not got the immediacy of things, um, but you have got opportunity, right? So
Mm.
use the time.
Yeah. Opportunity to work on yourself, and or work on the things that affect you as well.
Mm,
So I think that's big. I think you said something at the beginning of that, and it just like the intuition, basically, because I've been reading a little bit about that and kind of thinking more about that this week. And like intuition is basically scientific fact. It's amazing. It's like how your brain makes decisions is very similar. Very similar, whether it's a conscious decision based on logical. Here's the choices in front of me, and I'm going to decide to do this because of this, and how you do it unconsciously and based on a hunch is very similar. But what happens is you have but you're not aware of the hunch. You're not aware of the intuition in the same way that you're aware of a decision that you made logically. So
mm,
the way that your body way that your brain will communicate that decision to you is by, like, changing variables in your body, like changing your heart rate, changing whether you're sweating in your palms, whether your pupils dilate, all that kind of stuff. So but you won't necessarily pick up on the fact that your body is communicating with you in that way. And it's also because your subconscious is basically able to handle a hell of a lot more information. Right. So we're always taking information, and when we make decisions, it's based on the information that we've got. And it's pretty much always incomplete information. We're never going to make a good decision based on complete information. We just do it based on what we have in front of us. But the interesting thing is when you have a decision that you've got to make in front of you, and it's just like, there's only a few variables that you're affected by. So, say I've got 3 books in front of me. Is like, which one do I want to read? I'll just say, okay, this, make a logical decision. I'm going to pick this book. And, there's not very many variables there. So you're generally, in the long term, you're happier with that decision when there's not many inputs. But then when you've got a decision to make, which has a lot of different inputs, you actually make a better decision when you've relied on your intuition. And long term, people are happier with the decisions they made when they've relied on their intuition. So that's fascinating, right? To me, it's just that hunch, go with your heart or go with what your gut says.
Mm.
There's this scientific truth to that as well now. Like you kind of shown that your body is aware of the decision you've made before you've actually made the decision. So you know if you're making a mistake, your body knows if you're making a mistake. It's now up to you to get in tune with your intuition. It's now up to you to get in tune with the decisions that, with the way that your body is expressing the decisions that you're making. So there's so many things for that. For me, one of them is, you kind of got to get out of your own way. You got to stop thinking so much about the big decisions in your life, because when it comes to big decisions, you're always going to try and think about it logically. You're always going to be like, here's this input, here's this input, here's this input. But generally speaking, we actually, in the long term, we don't think it was a good decision if we think about big decisions with a lot of inputs and try and make the decision logically. Whereas if we're like working from the heart, working from the gut, long term, we're like, yeah, that was a good decision for me. So it can come down to, people that we work with, for example, where they're deciding on how, like, whether to work with us, and they're kind of umming and ahhing about it. Umming and ahhing is like, look, you've got a problem, I can solve it for you. Go with your gut, kind of thing. Is like, don't worry about thinking about it logically, because long term you will have made a better decision for yourself. I know it because I know I'm able to do that, deliver that result for you. The only thing holding you back is your logic, when really you've got to go for this. So it's interesting on that level. And then there's the other levels where it's interesting as well, which is you have to get in tune with your body. There's no two ways about it. You have to be aware. We talk about it every time. It comes back to that every single time. You've got to build the awareness so that you can rely on your intuition and know that that's a good decision that you're making. So with a lot of lifestyle choices that we can make, so if we're eating crap food, if we're not getting enough sleep, if we're not training, if we're not exercising, and we're not dealing with chronic stress, then our ability to dial into our intuition is way, way down. Whereas if we start making those changes and we start to improve the inputs into our body, we are better able to read what's going on with it. So if we improve our nutrition, if we improve our exercise levels, our fitness levels, get better control over our stress, and we get enough sleep, then all of a sudden we can start paying attention to actually what's going on with us. So we can start to make better decisions and rely on our gut instincts rather than trying to figure everything out all the time.
Bro, that's some fire, man.
Yeah. Fire, spit hot fire.
Got nothing to say now, man. That was so good. That was legit, bro. That is, yeah. We need to hear more about that, man. We need to hear more about that. That when you was talking about the last thing, because I'm just to hang on that coattail, was like when you have, like you said, like sleep in order, food in order, movement in order, breathing in order. Really, what you're saying is alignment, right?
Yes.
You got all your eggs in a row, and now everything's speaking to everything else. Like, yeah, that's such a legit thing you just said, man. And there's so many places in my mind kind of like just dropped off various people that I think, okay, right, he does that. TJ is the first person I go to who's like, he doesn't act off very much, but when he acts, it's like swift and precise. He's
amazing.
doesn't fuck around, right? He's direct, right? And that's sometimes in our relationship, there's like if there's a spectrum, TJ exists at the ends, and I occupy the middle. And it's like I'll be there where I'll see the gray, and TJ will be like black, white, and it's great because we need both. We need
100%.
both kind of things to encapsulate the full picture. Because you can't just have constant gray, because then you need someone to bookend and be like, no, this is the end. This is kind of where I'm at. This is where I'm not at. And that comes from kind of, I think, from his alignment with himself, and he knows that that's where he exists. But then in that partnership, we can both complement each other in a way. But yeah, bro, I think that's such a legit thing. And where in the past, I mean, I'm sure you've got examples of this as well, where you've fully aligned with yourself and felt like, I've made that decision, and I've made it knowing not much, but it's almost like you don't worry about making the right decision.
Yep.
because you know you'll make the decision right. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. That's a
yeah,
great way to put it.
I'm not gonna fuck with the start too much. I'm just gonna get going, and
Hmm.
then I'll figure it out. Like, I'll back myself to know that even if I'm falling right now, I'll turn it into flight. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's the way you've got to kind of see it, man. And yeah, I think there's so much in that, because I think sometimes you can kind of get paralyzed in yourself, and
completely.
you don't start. And I'm chatting to my cousin. He did his assessment with you this week, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Bilal.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And he was talking to me a little bit this week, and he was saying he gets like um, starting for him is tough. It's funny that I
Yes.
started that, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. But
That's
it
so
came out,
funny.
man. It worked out.
My body was like, I'm gonna play with you now, fool. You can't say the word. The other sister's like, watch this. I'm gonna
Yeah,
get him.
I'm gonna get you at the most basic level. It's like you say, starting is hard. I'm not even gonna let you say it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, bro. So yeah, that's it. That's literally it. Like, that point is the most pivotal, and almost like, just don't put weight on it. Just do it. Just do it,
Yeah.
because you trust yourself enough to figure it out afterwards. And it literally isn't. I can't remember how many times that I've like likened it back to Sylvie sparring with
Mm.
him. It's like, you don't take certain grips with Sylvie, but you only
Yeah.
learn that once you've taken the freaking grip, and you're like,
Exactly.
I'm on my ass again, right?
That's it, man.
I'm getting
Exactly.
choked out. I'm getting choked out again. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
fuck's sake.
exactly. Like with my own arm. Fuck.
But it's like, it's only through doing it again and
Mm.
again and again and again. And I
Yeah.
think, like, liking this back to TJ, he's somebody who's done constantly, like, through life. He's done constantly. And then, like you said, that awareness in that one realm doesn't just stay in that one realm, it
Mm.
permeates through his entire life. So it's
Yeah.
like, his experiences will teach him not only about himself in certain situations or other people, but he'll be able to then read other people through life, and he'll be able to
Mm.
see the subtext behind somebody's sentiment. Like, are
Mm.
you being sneaky that the last person was being sneaky, or are you being super
Mm.
genuine? Like, I know this person to be super genuine, and that all comes
Mm.
from his intuition. But the intuition is only created on starting and just doing, and then learning
Mm.
along the way. Like, you have to get burned to know
Mm.
what not to do with somebody. You have to experience, but all of it is preceded by just starting and just doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Completely,
man.
man. It's
So powerful, man.
yeah, fully resonate with that as well, because kind of there's a lot of people as well, but I know like my predisposition is to think like a million miles down the road, and it's a good skill to have, because it's like, okay, if I make a decision, then blah blah blah, this could come of it, right?
Mm.
But that leads to paralysis, like you said. Yeah, you're just paralyzed to make the start. So perfection paralysis is a very real thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it stops you from making the decision. It's just to go. And so I fully know where Bilal's coming from as well, especially, similar sort of thing where I made a career change, and here I am now. It was basically what I've realized is the things where I've just in everything that I've ever done, which has been worthwhile to me, it's always come from just starting, just doing the thing, getting the perfection out of the way, and starting off haphazardly, and then you just figuring it out. So it may not be the right decision, but you make the decision right. I love how you said that, because so if I think about the career change, it was kind of like I bit the bullet, handed in my resignation. Is like, all right, well, I don't have a job to go to yet, but I got to fucking start, man. Otherwise, I would have just sat on that and been like, oh no, I can't do it until it's safe to do it. It's kind of like what Arnie says is like, you have a plan A. If you have a plan B, then you're not plan. It's something like, if you have a plan B, then that means you're not working hard enough on plan A. Or it's like, there shouldn't be a plan B, because otherwise plan A is never going to happen, right? And so it's the same sort of thing. And like, so anytime I've done that, it's just intuition as well. It's like, I've tried to make the logical decision, but actually, when I ask myself, should I just do this? It's always been the right call. I've never regretted it. And yeah, so it's like, just do it haphazardly, and mistakes are your friend, because they're gonna, like you talked about before, the course correcting missile, right?
Mm.
it's just what it is. That's what mistakes do to you, is that you hit that, you're going down the path, you make a mistake, you just course correct based off of that mistake. You know not to do that again, or you know what that means if you make something similar like that. You course correcting, and then you go make another mistake, and you course correct, and you carry on, carry on, carry on until you got closer and closer and closer to the ideal destination. And that destination can change as well, because you start picking up better information, new information as you go along based on the mistakes that you make. So it's not something that's just like purely philosophical and conceptual and just abstract. It's like, this is how I've ended up making the best decisions in my life, and doing things which I don't regret. And it's because of biting the bullet, starting, and course correcting as you go along based on the mistakes that you make, because mistakes are a very good friend of yours. And I've had to get my head around that idea, because everything was geared around being perfect, being perfect, being perfect. And I would always stop myself from making a good decision, because I'm trying to think this needs to be perfect. But it doesn't need to be perfect, man. You just need to get started, and then you're going to learn so much along the way. And before you know it, you're exactly where you need to be.
Too right, bro. Too right. There's just so many things in that. If I look at, like, firstly, you touched on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and there's a podcast early on. I think it was on London Real, where Dorian Yates is on, and they were talking about training methodologies, and it was like, you mentioned about how you think further into the distance sometimes, and really all you need to think about is right now. And they were talking about different training styles with different bodybuilders. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was of the persuasion where you would train a push with a pull, and you would move from your bench press to do your bent over rows, and then you would move from your standing military press to do your deadlifts, to do your seated rows. You know what I mean? Like, it would always be antagonist, agonist, right? So they were asking Dorian Yates, like, did you adopt the same thing? And, like, people who know Dorian Yates know that he was very, very one exercise at a time,
right?
And his thinking was like, if I'm back in line with your plan A, plan B kind of thing, it's like, if I think about the second exercise that I have to do with this exercise, then I won't do this exercise with as much tenacity and as much passion, as much rawness as I could do. And anyone who knows how he trains is blood and guts, right? Like, that was, it was. Have you ever watched Blood and Guts?
No, I haven't.
Dude, you got to watch it.
Is that a documentary about him?
No, it's his prep for the 1993 Olympia. I've got that wrong. I'm sure I got that wrong. But he's prepping for an Olympia back in the day, and he's training in Birmingham at his gym, which was called, oh man, what was the gym called? Emporium? No, that's a different gym. Okay. I can't remember the name of his gym. Anyway, there's people listening to this being like ashamed of me right now. I'm sorry. It'll come to me. And,
it's okay, buddy. It's okay. We're allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going. Forward.
Exactly.
Not gonna stop me. Yeah, and he's training, and basically it's just his training. There's no voiceover. There's no pre-context. He just goes into the gym, has his hoodie on. The guy shows up, and the guy who showed up with the camera showed up, and he didn't bring his color cartridge with him, so he has to shoot the whole thing in black and white. And Dorian's like, fuck it, I don't give a shit. Like, you're gonna shoot me training. You're not gonna come back next week, because I want you out of here by next week. I want you just to shoot this week of training and then get out of it. And it turned out to be even better, because it's the video series is called Blood and Guts. Like, because when he goes in, he goes all the way in. Like, something that I learned from him was that one rep mentality. Like, if I gave you one rep and I said, get it done with one, like, how good would you make that rep? And I really, when I was training more for like bodybuilding and muscular size and strength and strength with a barbell kind of thing, that was my moniker. Like, if I had one chance to hit this nail on the head, how well would I hit this nail on the head? And it's just about that absolute alignment in that moment. Like, you don't need to think left and right. You just need to practice being dead center right now. And then it's how many times are we perfect? Like, this is a quote from Andre Agassi's autobiography, and Nutella actually gave me that book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And there's a quote in there which is like something like along the line, I'm going to get this wrong as well, but it was like, you're perfect like 5% of the time. Like 5 days of the year, I think, yeah, that's it. 5 days of the year, you're unbeatable on a tennis court. But the
Mm.
other days, you're not perfect. You have to just show up and just put the reps in, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to lose some and win some and whatever. But it's through the reps that you get the 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 training to align to be perfect. You know what I mean? And his point was just that I want to be right on the money with every single rep that I do. And if I only get six, those are six ideal reps. Whereas the other ways, and what that would compile to be would be, it would be a workout which would be super short, and it would be like 3 sets, and he would get ones, or so sometimes even 2 sets or 1 set. I think I'm getting that wrong by saying 3 sets. It was sometimes it'd just be 1 set where he would just go in, smash it till he couldn't move an inch anymore, and then move on to the next movement and attack the muscle from a different angle.
Yeah.
And a lot of the bodybuilders of the day, and Arnold Schwarzenegger himself as well, would be like, I've got to do reps on reps on reps. So really shifting the volume into the workout. Whereas he would be of the approach, like, if I do it well and if I nail it one time, I don't need
Mm-hmm.
to do a million. I can just do the one set and then get out of the gym and work on my recovery.
Right.
And actually grow and recover and then come back the next day and hit it even harder and put more weight on the
Mm.
bar. Whereas you're still here doing the same set of 50 reps. You know what I mean? Like that was
Right.
his thought process behind it. I just thought it linked across really well, where
Yeah.
just be in complete alignment and don't think too far in the future. Just nail this right here, right now. And
Mm.
it gets me thinking, like, the last point on this was a client of mine, Andy. He was talking about how when it comes to addiction,
Mm.
it's they ask you to focus on the next 15 minutes of your life. Like, if you can
Mm-hmm.
get through the next 15 minutes of your life without needing your fix, then well done. You've
Yeah.
nailed it. That's as good as you could have done, because the thing that keeps you behind is overthinking,
Yeah.
and or kind of or staying with your addiction. But if you can get through the next 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute without kind of going that way, then that's as good as you could have done. So that
Mm.
is you being perfect. Like, great
Yeah.
work. So
Exactly.
I think a lot of people can take from that and be like, if I can get through the next minute of my life without overthinking and just acting, then you can
Mm.
slowly start doing the reps in the right direction, and
Exactly.
that's going to turn into you just being gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah, completely. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, park the thing that you're seeing in the future because that's just overwhelming you right now. You're like, you're going to get there eventually, but it's like you got to make the action right now. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's it. Is just the more you do that, the the closer you'll ever get to being where you want to be. Whereas if you're just thinking about this is in front of me, this is what's way down ahead of me, which is potentially the thing that I'm aiming at, and it's like it seems like such a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so big that it's overbearing,
Yep.
and it's like yeah, but you can still get there, but you got to chunk it right down to what can you do right now,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's so important for people that we work with. It's because it's always like, especially like with your client base as well. Have you come across a lot of people who have like so-called done it all in the past and just can't get the result to stick?
Mm, in a way,
Mm,
yeah, because I think people have thought that. Yeah, I think the example that jumps out of my mind is a girl that I worked with when I was at Mayfair, and she kind of came in with all the, like, I've done this training, I've done that training, I've done this diet, and I've done that diet, and I'm kind of in. She was in a place where she wasn't by any stretch of the imagination in bad shape, but you could tell there was something about her. And again, it's back to your intuition. She didn't
mm,
have to say it, but I could
mm,
feel that she was at a very high level of unease with herself. Like, she almost felt like, fuck, I can't achieve what I want to achieve. And what she wanted to achieve was to be lean, was to be in that kind of cover model kind of physique shape.
mm,
But the things that were holding her back was that she wasn't really giving. That's all right. She wasn't really giving each thing that she was trying her full attention, and she was almost like flirting on the edge of it. And like you said, not aligning with things like sleep, and not aligning with her digestion, not aligning with her stress management at all, and not aligning with her perspective as to where she was. And she was a very, very hardworking individual. I remember first session we did. I think it was lateral raises, and I just wanted to see where she was at with being pushed. And I think I gave her a set of 5 kilo dumbbells, and she must have done like 50 odd reps, and she was just going and going and going. So it was like work ethic was not the issue, but the issue was that she wasn't fully getting into what she was doing, and she was almost like skirting other things. So when it come time to work hard, no problems. But when it came time to go home and calm the mind down, that was very difficult for her. So then getting sleep was very difficult for her. So then getting motivated for the next day was even harder. So then having a conversation with somebody at work was even harder, and it was everything just rolled into the next. So yeah. What prompted you to ask that question?
Because it's a lot to do with like the long-term goal. Like, so in her case, long-term goal would be to get into that physique. And often what tends to happen is you start on something, and so when it comes to those clients who have done it before but can't get the result to stick, one of the big things I think is happening is that they're not sticking with what's the best way to describe it? There's several things that are going on, but I think one of the biggest ones is that it's just like there's too much emphasis placed on the long term, and the ability to do the thing every day, to build that consistency, isn't there. And so the baseline isn't rising. It's kind of like you do something for a short-term period, you get somewhere with it. It might feel like hard work. It might feel like it doesn't fit in with your lifestyle. It might not resonate with who you are as a person to train in that kind of way. So then you think, oh, I've tried everything, and it just doesn't work for me because this is just not who I am, maybe. And then, results come back down again. And then if they hire somebody else to do the same, to help them out again, they kind of go through that kind of up and down, yo-yoing through getting results, not getting results, getting results, not getting results. But I always find there's something more deeper lying than that. And also not being in full alignment with what the end goal actually is. So, and not tapping into what the genuine issues are. So genuine issues like we touched on it last week, self-belief, self-worth. In this client's case that you just talked about, it wasn't work ethic was an issue, but for somebody else, work ethic could be an issue, getting motivated to train towards the goal. So then it's like, I have something I want to achieve, but it's not kept at the forefront of the mind because that's going to be important for when it gets hard, right? And like we've said it before, is like, especially if you're a novice, you're going to make gains quickly, but then you're going to get to a point where you probably plateau, and you need a reason to break through that. You don't want to get to a point where, oh, this is as far as I can ever come, and limit yourself with that belief. It's actually taking stock of what's actually happening and keeping yourself aligned with what your goal is, and then realizing that you do have the capacity to break through that. So I asked that question because I think a lot of it has to do with not being aligned with that end goal and not chunking it down so that the consistent action is something that that is required for you to get to that goal, is something that you can actually do consistently. Like classic case being somebody thinking of needing to be 100% on nutrition all the time, is like, I need to be eating clean, is like, and the classic thought of, I need to be chicken and broccoli, 3 meals, like 6 meals a day. And I need to make sure I drink, and I need to get all this sleep. And, just putting so many rigid restrictions on oneself without knowing why, without you basically relating to why you're doing it. And so there's, I think, that's why I kind of brought that up, is like how how the long-term goal is there, but then the action that's required to pull it off isn't there. You know,
Mm,
is
mm,
not the sustainable, consistent action that needs to be performed to get to that end goal,
yeah.
and and also and also, so it's the alignment. So it's also, because when you do have something that you need to achieve, and you're going to have, and you know, you haven't got there before, you haven't been able to sustain that result, then you are going to have to do things that you haven't done before, and then being okay with that, or at least learning to be okay with that. So it could it will require a change of some level, and
Hmm.
so keeping the end result in mind, and being dedicated to that, and realizing that the consistent action you got
Hmm.
to take right now
Hmm.
is something that feels difficult and
Hmm.
is going to be difficult because it's not normal for you, but also it's where it's going to get you where you want to get to. And if you are completely opposed to it, let's figure out why you have the opposition to it. And you'll find that somebody may have had an eating disorder in the past, so you know they don't like the idea of dieting, and it's like, okay, well, this doesn't have to be, this isn't about dieting, this is about sustainable living, sustainable lifestyle. So you find out where somebody's actually coming from. So I think that's a massively important part of it, is like being honest about where you're coming from, so that you can actually get to that end result. Otherwise, if you're not, you're always going to be struggling. You're always going to be yo-yo.
Mm. Too right, man. Too right. There's we like you said, you've said it before as well on the podcast, like looking at the end goal, looking at the shiny Instagram model and being like, I want to be like that person, but
Mm,
then not relating it back down to you, and
mm,
not seeing that that person probably has very, very good genetics, probably been training from a very young age, probably understood nutrition very well, probably in most people's scenario, most people's cases right now, especially if you're looking at like a supplement ad, probably
mm,
taking some kind of enhancement steroid or
mhm,
whatever.
mhm,
You're relating it back down to somebody who has a super stressful job, who isn't able to cope with that, firstly, who maybe has, like you said, history of not the best relationship with food.
mhm.
Maybe been surrounded by people who haven't supported you enough. You know what I mean? There's millions of things that go into alignment, and I think the faster that we start to excavate like your own self,
Mm,
the better for everyone, right? Because
mm,
if you're kind of, if you're going forward thinking that you're somebody else, it's just like a pantomime, right? You're not gonna have the real thing. You need to strip back your own layers first of that
mm.
kind of onion that you are, and see kind of how what's the best course of action for yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, I totally agree with that, and I think a lot of people will look to the end goal, and this is part of the reason why I didn't like working at some of the places I've worked in the past, is because it's very important to start. It's very, very important to start, and we talked about this earlier, and then along the way make adjustments. But I think there's more of a educated way in which we can start, and I think
Mm,
that's something that you do really, really well. I think with your assessments of people, and that's something that we can all kind of learn from and add to our skill set, is taking our time to really get to know a person, and
mhm.
not kind of jumping in the deep end with, oh, let me just smash you with chicken and broccoli, and let me just make you do burpees till you fall over.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's it's like Jordan Shallows says on his course, like, really, it's 2020, guys. Like we have a lot more understanding of the body right now
Mhm.
to say that things are like weak or tight or strong or lacking. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many more ways we can look at these things. So that then comes back down to what you said earlier about somebody like being a bit lacking commitment when it comes to working with someone.
Mm,
It's unless they're taking the time to check all these variables. And I've been lucky enough to work with some of the best coaches in the industry right now, the industry, through my kind of time training. And the best ones are always the ones that take the time to understand you, to understand where you're
yep.
at, to have that conversation with you every couple of days, to be there on the end of the phone, to check on things like stress levels. I'll have that conversation where, okay, I'm not being billed for this. I don't care about the fact that I'm not being billed for this. I just want to make sure you're in a good place. Like the why. Back to TJ, he says this all the time. Like the why is sincere. It's like you can have a why, which is like I want to be the most well known person in this industry in my field. Like I want to be like for yourself, you want to be the brown guy who fixes people. Like that can be you, right? But at the end of the day, you can be that. But if you're not sincere in that, then people will see it. And like you said, with your alignment and people's intuition, you said it in the other podcast, right? Like who you are speaks so loud, no one can hear a word you're saying, right? I really live by that. I genuinely live by that because you can spend 5 minutes with you and realize that, you know what, all you want to do is help people, and that people sometimes who don't see it, you can almost leave it to be like, okay, you're not aligned enough to see the value I have for you, but I know it's there. I know I've worked for it. I know that this is pure, and it's kind of a matter of time, right? So yeah, just do the work on yourself to find out all those little things because it's all part of the picture.
Yeah, 100%. And if anything, it's the most important part of the picture as well. It's like there's a void there, and that goal is filling that void, right? And that isn't to say that because something that I've been musing about, like a conversation I had was like, if you have a goal, does that inherently mean that where you are right now, you're not enough? And for me, the way I look at it is like you actually have everything within you to achieve whatever you want. It's just not being expressed yet. So if you're at a situation, say for example, you have a goal that you want to get to. So let's relate it back to the very kind of rudimentary goal that people have in the health and fitness industry, which is want to tone up, lose weight. So say that is a goal, but what that goal does is represent the best version of yourself, right? So the goal isn't to turn up and lose weight. The goal is to become a better version of yourself. The goal is to become a healthier version of yourself, a fitter version of yourself. And that's what is actually underlying what that means. And so and also that isn't to say that where you are right now, you are not enough. Like you have to believe that you're enough to be able to get to that place as well, because where you are is mostly an expression of all the decisions you made to be there. So you are trying to now express yourself in a way which is more aligned with who you could be. And so that goes back to what we've said before about identity is shifting. It changes based on who you decide you want to be, who you decide what values you decide to live by. But it's also, I think it's all within you. Everything that you ever want to do is within you. It's just about giving yourself the space and the explicit, maybe the goal is the thing, giving yourself that explicit goal to aim at to help you express everything you could possibly be. So I don't even remember what the original thing it came off was, but
that's legit, bro.
I think that's what it is. I think it's that's another thing. So maybe I think that's what I'm trying to say is anybody who sets out a goal, you have to accept where you are right now, because if you don't, it's like you're running away from something. You can't run away from yourself. Basically, you have to appreciate where you are right now and know you can do better for yourself. And you should always believe that you can do better for yourself. And that is what helps us live good lives, helps us live better lives. Because anytime you kind of fall into your own version of mediocrity, where you're not really doing anything which is helping you move forward in your own way, it doesn't matter how small it is, you just end up with a level of anxiety, you end up with a level of stress, you end up not feeling happy with the situation around you, on whether it's on a low grade level where it barely registers, but there's something going on with you, all the way to the big things where you're like, I could be doing better for myself and I'm not, and therefore it's making me feel depressed. So it's related to all of that. I think you have to appreciate and accept where you are and realize that you can express yourself in a better way so that you can be more aligned with who you truly want to be. And every time you're on that journey, you make life a lot more interesting for yourself and for the people around you as well. Whether they realize it or not, they're going to be better off for you being in
Mm,
a better position. And so it's kind of like, I think another way of looking at it is like, here's a dot placing yourself here right now, and then here's another dot where you think you want to be, and you're just drawing a line between the two, and you're just kind of moving along. You're moving along that line. You're charting a course on that line, and it's still you. It's just a better. It's a better version of you. So that's where it comes down to kind of knowing where you're at, and appreciating where you're at, and accepting where you're at, and then expressing the better versions of you so that you're moving along that line, charting that course to the territory where you can feel better and better and better about yourself
hmm.
and set a new baseline, man.
Too right, bro. Too right. Yeah, man. It's like almost like the perception of how you think it should go versus the perception of how it actually goes.
Mm.
Like we're not perfect. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's that we are completely flawed and for the no, mostly flawed. And the reason we want to do better in the end is we see that there is growth. You know what I mean, there is something that I want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, understanding where you want to go, but also clearly understanding where you're at right now is
Mm-hmm.
vital because without it, I think you end up spending a lot of your time. And I did this. I did this too much when I was going through my. And I could say it's such a good segue in my opinion, where I can say that my goal when I was younger and I was chasing the weight on the barbell was to be bigger, to be stronger, and that was it. There was no clear defined number. There was no clear defined today I will tick that box if I hit X, Y, or Z. It was
Mm-hmm.
just I was using it as a medium of expression and I was going to the gym as an angry kid, lifting angry every day. And that's fine to an extent, but really if I was to say could I have used that time better? 100%. Could I have used that time to be more aligned if I was clearer with the daily objectives and breaking it down and being like, okay, today numbers, for instance, I'm going to work off certain percentages. I'm going to work off of fully understanding my makeup so I don't get injured over long times. And I'm going to go home to rest because I need to rest appropriately because I need to realign. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
all the variables, all the moving parts have to slowly be excavated and have to slowly be brought to your awareness. And like you said, like the dot here and the dot kind of off in the distance, you it's only by starting and by making the journey that you realize, oh shit, I've got to know this and I've got to know this and I've got to know
Mm-hmm.
this. And it's like we talk about this gym that we're doing right now and like there's so much. There's just so much to consider. And it's like there's
Yeah.
so much because you're the same as I feel like I'm similar to yourself in this is that having a business, having a gym or having whatever it is, you know you want the long-term vision is there. But then as you kind of start picking away at that Pandora's box and it just flips and opens on you, you're just like, oh wow, there is
Yeah.
so much in this. And
Yeah.
like you just have to be more than who you were at the start. Like I remember when I came out from London, I thought I was kind of there. I'd seen a very good example of roughly what I wanted to have for myself. But now I'm just like, yeah, there's so much more. There's so much more. And that so much more is every day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and I think it's just it's like you said, it's vital for yourself to start that journey. It's vital for yourself to be responsible enough. And this is another like kind of virtue and value that I think we need to explore is like that responsibility of okay, I want to change, but when you start changing, are you somebody who's like going about it like a headless chicken and just kind of running around thinking that you're moving towards the goal and really at the same time making people's lives around you a bit more chaotic? Or are you somebody who's just like a bit of a tortoise? I'm just plucking away every day. I'm plucking away every day. And by the end of it, I'm going to get vaguely where I wanted to be, but I'm going to have much more of an understanding because I went at it a bit slower and I know that I know roughly, I know as much as I can know right now about where I'm going and I'm slowly
Mm-hmm.
going to work toward it. You know what I mean? Like that's,
Yep.
that's the, that's such a key thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a Confucius line. It doesn't matter how slowly you go as long as you don't stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
And,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's a powerful one to know, because it's just, if you can, at the end of the day, the way you look, where you talk about it is, can you look in the mirror and say, you're happy with what you've done today and who you are? My way of looking at it is can I say to myself that I've moved forward in some small way today? Have I? And if, even if it's just like a tiny little thing, it could just be like for example, I'm setting up an online portal, right, for future clients, and like it is a big task, because it's like, what do I need to incorporate? What kind of funnel do I need to have that leads towards it? Friggin' like what's how am I going to lay out like the modules, for example, and how am I going to make it coherent, all those different things. And I'm like putting myself into some overwhelm with that. And that's the thing, when you have overwhelm, that's basically you've got too many inputs coming in to your nervous system, and your brain's going, I'm going to shut down because I can't handle all of this. So you stop, right? But then what you need to do is go, hang on a second. I've got all this shit going on. I've got all this stuff that is making me freeze. Let me just pick one thing, like one small thing. And that for me started off with, today I'm going to find the membership portal service provider that I'm going to use, and I'm going to sign up to it. Done. I moved forward. The next day, I'm going to investigate it. I'm going to look at the tutorials that they have, and make sure that I'm kind of getting to grips with it. Cool, done. Next day, I'm going to start playing around with the membership portal, and the next day is today for me, actually. So it's just each and every day I'm moving that little bit forward, and you could easily have it in your head that I haven't done enough, because we're so self-critical. We end up being really, really self-critical of ourselves, and we're just like, yeah, I did that, but I could have done this. Yeah, I did that, I could have done this. But fundamentally, you got to ask yourself, did I move forward today? Did I make a decision which is in alignment with who I am and where I want to go? Yeah, in line with my core values and where I want to go. If you can say yes, you can be fucking proud of yourself. You've done a good thing. Because the thing about that is it snowballs as well, and you end up training. You're putting the reps in for that, right? And you end up training that, and then you end up being able to lift more weight in that.
Mm-hmm.
You end up being able to add more volume to that, so you improve your levels of efficiency on a day-to-day basis, on your productivity, and you're able to make even more decisions which are aligned with your core values, which are aligned with where you're going. So then it ends up having that compounding effect, and you're better and better and better and better and better off each and every day. And you have to go back to appreciating that journey. But you also do have to ask yourself at the end of the day, is like, what could have gone better? Mm-hmm. And that's one thing where I've realized is like, oh, I've said this same answer several days in a row. Tomorrow, I'm going to make sure that's not the same answer. So it's an important thing to go through that. So then you've added a thing to your win there. You've taken it off the what could have gone better list to what can I, what did I do well today, even if it's something small. Mm-hmm. And so that is the way you challenge the big goal. That is the way you take on the challenge, and that is the way that you break it right down, so that you don't go through the overwhelm. When you have that Pandora's box that opens up, and you're like, "Oh fuck, I didn't realize I had all this shit to do." Because I just pick one thing, man. Just got to run with it, and then that'll compound on itself. And and I've found myself like doing that more, and actually. I'm actually achieving something, just getting better and better and better at life as a result of doing that kind of stuff. And then what I will say is it's not going to be like that every single day. So here's a good one. Is like, say, Thursday for me was one of those days. So I had a few sessions a day. I delivered the sessions, and I was like, that was productive in that level. But then around that, I realized, like, without even realizing it, it was actually without realizing it. It got to the end of the day when I was kind of evaluating everything. I was like, you know what? The day just kind of slipped by me. I had 3 things that I wanted to do besides the training my clients, and I didn't fucking get to them. I was like, what the hell happened? Like, where did I waste my time? How did I become so unproductive? And then, the time gremlin that is social media. It was, I started thinking about it, I was like, yeah, that's definitely on the top of the list. And then because of how that affects your brain and how it can leave you in that kind of scatterbrain process, scatterbrain kind of situation. I didn't focus on anything else. And then so I got towards the end of the day and I was like, why do I feel antsy? You know, like I didn't achieve anything. I didn't achieve what I needed to on like the small thing I needed to on this given day. So I felt like I was just beating myself up, right? So I felt like shit. I was like, this is fucking ridiculous. I shouldn't have wasted my day, blah, blah, blah. But because I've got this new process of evaluating the day, I saved the day. So what I mean by that is instead of beating myself up about it and then the next day kind of lingering in bed in the morning and feeling like shit because I wasted yesterday, so you know today's a bit of a write-off. You know how like we talked about the negative cycle that you can find yourself in, like you got a virtuous cycle and you got the vicious cycle. So if you keep making bad decisions, those bad decisions snowball on themselves, and you just before you know it, you're like you're not productive during the day. You're not eating the foods that you know you want to eat, which will sustain your health. You're not getting enough sleep. You're just kind of in this haze and all that kind of stuff. And but what I did instead was at the end of the day, I evaluated what happened. I was like, this is why this happened. And I'm not going to let that. Number one, I realized I don't like the feeling of that. And number two, I realized why it happened. So I'm just not going to do that tomorrow. So I brought myself a hell of a lot more awareness by having a bad day. So I had a shit day. I realized what that was because I've got this process now where I evaluate it. And I'm just like, I'm not going to let that happen again. You know, I'm going to make sure that I don't feel like that again on another day. So it became a very, very good day. So a bad day became a very good day because I learned so much from that day. And then it basically made me delve deeper into what does my ideal day look like? How do I want that? How do I want to feel at the end of the day? And so I know now how I don't want to feel and how is that going to feed into what I do want to feel. And so laid out my kind of ideal day and laid out how I want to feel at the end of the day, and just making sure that I'm edging towards becoming more and more efficient with my time. And that is also related to what is like the actions are related to my core values, so that I come out of every day feeling really good. And so it was a blessing. You know, it ended up being a blessing in disguise. I ended up having a crap day, but I turned it into a very meaningful day. Let's put it that way. It doesn't mean it's a good day. It means it was a meaningful day because I learned so much from having that day and realizing that I don't want to feel like that again. And I don't want to have that kind of day again. And I'm going to utilize that to drive me forward. So like when you have that kind of day, it doesn't mean that it's a write-off. It doesn't mean it's a write-off, but it doesn't mean that it defines what the next day has to look like and the day after that. Because a lot of people have the idea of, well, if I'm off the bandwagon, then fuck it, you know, I've lost it. It's like, no, not at all. Next day, you just reevaluate. You evaluate what went wrong. The next day, and you fix it up. You get back to where you need to be.
Too right, man. Too right. I mean, like you said it best there. You learn what you don't want. And I think it's all the same sayings, but it's like you fail your way forward, right? You fail your way to the right answer, and those days are only wasted if you don't learn from them. Like lessons are only losses if you don't learn from them, right? Like you've got to make sure that you have that reevaluation period, and like then you bring it back to your awareness. You run it by your alignment, and then you act. Right? It's like you've got to really make sure that you It's a process. It's a process, man. It's the
process.
Process. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. You just it's really interesting because I think the more you touched on it today, and I think it's a really, really great way. I keep cycling back to it. Is that if you want this to be your life, start figuring it out right now, because it all just steamrolls. Like you start having awareness of one thing, and that's your intuition growing, and that internal intuition then spreads into, well, I don't really like the way that person talks to me, so I'm going to cut them out of my life. Like that. Okay, that's a thing that I didn't want part of my day gone. Like that's not an issue anymore. Like, and the fact that I did that was an act that I feel comfortable doing. I'm now affirming that I'm a strong, confident person who can just say, "Nah, see you later." Like that's and the fact that I'm recognizing the fact that I am a strong person is another thing. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many kind of, like you said, compounding efforts. All of a sudden, like I now have the confidence to know that I want to sign up for this course. I know I have the confidence to know that when I learn this thing, I'm going to go forward and teach it with complete generosity. You know what I mean? Because again, you've done the reps and knowing yourself, and
Yeah.
there's no other way to be, because you're right on your path. You know what I mean? You have to, like you said, lose that path to you have to lose that path and then be aware of that loss to kind of come back. You know what I mean? Like that, back to that missile analogy. You've got this internal barometer which is telling you, like, I don't want to be doing these days that feel like shit, these days that leave me feeling more lethargic, leave me feeling more like, tomorrow again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
I know a few of those people where you see them and you just, there's like almost you want to grab them and just scream in their face. Like you want to just hold their head and just like shout into their face. And like that's the feeling I get sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah. I thought of somebody immediately when you started saying that.
same. And like you just grab their ears and just like, you
Yeah.
need to just no, whatever this is, right, is just not it. Like you're off the mark, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect. Like we ain't perfect, but at the same time, right? You know what? We're here trying, right? And
Mm,
I really want you to just be more about that life, like be
mm,
more about that correction. And
yeah.
I like to think that we'd be the kind of people that would pick up on the slightest correction. And I think we are. Sometimes like somebody will say something and you're just like, I'll log that in my mind. You use
Yeah.
the good word. Like that's nice. That's like, obviously it's not like I am the fucking king of awareness. Like but it's like
I am good at.
yeah, I could, but you pick up on it. You pick up on when somebody is making an actual effort, right? Like
Mm,
I don't know, you've had that client that is like, you set them a task to do, whether it be a form on an exercise, and you can just see them like just going through the motion and like, where's your head at? Like, do you see
yeah.
yourself right now? Do you really
Mm,
see yourself? Because you're asking me to change this thing that you're supposedly really not happy with, but the action that I'm seeing from you is that, fuck, if I could stay like this for the rest of my life, I'd be well happy. Like that's what I'm
mm,
seeing. But
mm,
yeah, man, it all just comes back down to that same thing, is that if you're not aligned fully, or even trying to be aligned with what you want to be, then outsourcing that to somebody else is
mm,
only going to get you so far down the road. Like
mm,
we are in the business of teaching people how to align and making
yeah.
them aware, and then teaching them how to act on that awareness and that alignment, right? Like
Mm,
I've run those three phrases by you before, and the more I think about it, the more I see them in unison. It's like,
mm,
yeah, and but you can only go so far with that. It's very much about like you, like Kai
mm.
Green says it in one of his. Have you ever followed Kai Green before?
Yeah, I know of him. Yeah, I've like seen
Yeah,
some of the stuff he's done as well, but I haven't
super
followed him
cool.
on social media or anything.
Okay. So basically, I think this was kind of before his social media, but he did
Right.
these videos for MD, Muscular Development Magazine, and
Mm,
he's basically in this like apartment in middle of New York. It's funny, me and TJ randomly started talking about this the other day, and it was cool because it was nice to know that I'd sat there, watched that video, and somewhere I didn't even know TJ at that time, but he'd sat there
right.
and watched that video. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
it hit both of us in a really hard way. And
Yeah.
then we'd, like, years and years later, we'd sat there and just been like, "Oh shit, yeah, you remember that too?" Like
It's
that's such a
like
cool thing.
it's like stepbrothers. Can we just become best friends?
Yes,
That's a line
yes,
every time. I love
yeah,
it.
man. And in that like film shot or whatever, it's like a two-part documentary thing, and like 20 minutes long each, right? He's in this apartment, and he's like, it's a crappy place, but he knows why he's there. He knows that he has to stay in that apartment because it puts him in a mindset that he's like, I want to leave this apartment, but I want to
Mm,
leave it with a trophy. I want to leave it with I'm using this place to make me work harder to get out of this place. You know what
mm,
I mean? And then he goes to the gym and he's sat there, like, I think after his workout, and he's like, you literally have to save your own life Like you actually have to save your own life. Like, and his story is a mad story where he's talked about like he was an orphan growing up, I think, living in and out of hostels, and then somebody kind of adopted him. I think adopted him, or just kind of he was a foster child. Somebody foster parented him. I don't know what that phrase is. Yeah, so he's been there where life's been super tough for him. But you see a lot of people kind of back to what we said at the start of the conversation, like there's no real they're not choosing that hard path. You know what I mean? No, he didn't necessarily choose it, but it kind of chose him. But then at the end of the day, he was choosing it because he was choosing to stay in that apartment. Like he'd won Olympia titles, but not Olympia titles, but Arnold Classic titles by then. He had won a lot of money. He could have moved over to a different part of town, but he was choosing to kind of stay in the fire. You know what I mean? Like, and that's such a big win, and that then becomes a person who, like I said, is dangerous, is a weapon, because they can affect you with their fire. You know what I mean? Like if you ain't got none, you can't give none. But you've got to go and get yours first. And like I said, like you got to save your own life first by being aware of your own life, being aware of the reps you're doing, and what are you causing to hypertrophy by doing these reps, right? Are you causing the fat, lazy kind of person inside you to hypertrophy, or are you causing the beast inside you to come on out?
Yeah, exactly, man. How you gonna lead that life?
Love it, man. Completely. Love it for sure, bro. For sure.
Thinking of athletes, been watching that Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan documentary on.
Okay.
I missed a couple of episodes, but The Last Dance. And man, I don't know if you know anything about Jordan.
Nothing. Tell me, anything.
Man. Bro, he like to me, like the competitive spirit in that guy is just unrivaled, man. That's just what it seems like unrivaled. He's got the capacity to take one tiny thing and like his baseline is so freaking high that baseline is the best in the world, like or best ever, and especially at the time is like best in the world. And then but he'll be able to introduce another gear. If somebody just like ever so slightly slights him, he's going to use that. And and just basically the ability to take something and help it build you into something bigger. I'm not saying like anybody does it the way Jordan does it, because I don't know anything else about how he felt about his how he how much of a success he considered himself, all that kind of stuff. I don't know anything about that, but what I do see is like the ability to take something and to let it elevate you. And I just thought like it just kind of made me think of that is whereas Kai Green's like staying in that apartment because it represents him going through the fire. There's like Jordan with the ability to take one little thing and be able to use it to help him elevate himself to another level. It was something like in some of the examples they gave in the documentary was like one of the things was a guy who had a good game on him and just said to him, "Yeah, nice game, Mike." And that just took him like, all right, this took him to another level. He goes, that's it, because the way he interpreted it is this guy thinks he's better than me. Fuck him. I'm going to destroy him. And then just kind of ran with that and just basically ran rampant on the teams in the following matches. And so it's more like no one's going to be able to be him. No one's going to be able to like emulate that kind of like that level of mindset basically. But it's just kind of taking that principle and being like, what is the thing that you can use to help drive you forward, and well, while you're at it as well, try and enjoy the process as well. I'm not sure if you ever enjoyed the process on some level. Like, I don't know, because I don't know that side of him. But it's like take something, make it mean something, and then just and make it excel you. And so it kind of made me think of on what small level am I doing that in my life. I'm like, yeah, okay. There's a couple of things. It's like with my training is like. I think of like what it means to be strong in a couple of years' time, what it means to have a strong, healthy, mobile body at 75, and what that means is like He's like, I'm going to be fit and healthy then, and I'm going to be
Mm.
fit and healthy now. Is by working on it now is the way I think about it. And then just kind of like having one kind of word in my mind is like, you know how you're talking about the day you don't want to go to the gym is the day you go to the gym. For me, is like I kind of think of that person in a couple of years' time who I believe to be strong in that physical sense, and I just use the word like strong. And like that's my word, like, or a variation of it is like strength or strong, and it just helps me to be like, yeah, okay, that's where I'm headed. So
Mm-hmm.
don't forget,
Mm-hmm.
just train.
Love it, man. Love it.
Mm.
That's so legit. That's yeah, he's a beast in that sense, man. And I
Mm.
think it was that like that song that I sent you last time, the Whosia tune.
Yeah, yeah, sick
Yeah,
track.
man. That the
Arsonist Lullaby.
yeah. The what's the line from it? It's like
So,
all you have is your fire
yeah, yeah.
and the place you need to reach, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, I know that. And then it's like you can't
Don't ever.
ever tame your demons, just keep them on
Yeah,
a leash, right? It's
yeah.
like that's it.
Yeah. I think it's even better. It's even better. It's like he says, "Don't ever tame your demons. Just keep them on a leash." So
Mm,
that's even better because it's not like you can tame your demons. You could tame your demons, but it's like don't tame them. Just keep them on a leash, and
yeah,
it's
man.
legit. That was
That's
a
what
sick
he's
line.
yeah, that's what he's saying with Jordan there. He's like, I'll remember that. I'll remember
Yeah,
that. Like it's there. And I genuinely I resonate with that sometimes because it's like you want to be, it's going to sound madness now, but you want to be a good person, right?
yeah,
You want to be somebody who is upstanding but then there's a time and a place to just be like ruthless. And I
mm.
think you need both. You absolutely need both. And you need to
100%.
exercise that ruthlessness on yourself first to
Fully.
then if you're in a competitive environment where someone's sticking their finger in your chest and telling you no, no. Like no, it's my way.
I'm
You know
gonna
what I mean?
rise
Like
up. Okay.
yeah, that's it. That's it. You have to and you can get told no in that setting, but then you can't forget it. Like you have to use that. You have to use that. And I think that's a very powerful thing, man. 100%, 100%. It's made him who he was. But I think that no, let's just stay on him as an athlete, right?
Mm.
100. There's a reason why he's the greatest, right? And like in that medium, like you can't like the thing of judging a goldfish by its ability to climb a wall. Like no, don't call about that. Like Michael Jordan is a basketball player. Let's judge him by being a basketball player, and that just shows that setting, that click in the mind, is what he needed to be that greatest and leave everybody else behind. So yeah, man, I think that's totally legit. And there's a lot of lessons there. And like Charles Poliquin used to say that success leaves clues. And
Mm.
in that setting, like success, the clue that he left was like nobody can have anything. Like this is
Mm.
mine. Like, and we see the same thing with John Jones, right? John Jones is that same like he doesn't give you anything. Like he doesn't want to give you an inch, right? And I
Mm.
think he strikes me in the same way that he can't switch off. Like he's
Mm.
always been wild, volatile John Jones. But
Yeah.
then when it gets to hitting you with a spinning back elbow, you can see in his mind, like he's like, yeah, you're gonna take that, and you're gonna take another one, and you're gonna take another one, and I've got this for you too. You don't even know about that yet. And I think
Yeah.
that's definitely part of that game. That's definitely part of that game. And I think, yeah, it just like we said in the conversation earlier, it's about knowing what's required in all these situations. If it's life, okay, it's a different set of rules we're playing by. But if it's a
Mhm.
competition, and if it's like if it's that level, the highest level, then you best be able to switch gears
Yeah.
and use like I think you have to use a bit of aggression, use a little bit of passion, like in that sense, to
Yeah.
just deny the next guy and be like, no, it's my time.
Completely, man. It's like,
Mm.
and um, several things. I mean, so Jordan Peterson, I like how he puts it, which is you have to, you should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it. And the idea behind it is also that because there's no point in there's no virtuosity in being tame, in being naive, in being a rabbit. You know, it's like to
Mm.
be docile and to hold yourself back. If it's virtuous if you know how to be monstrous and you don't be monstrous.
Mm.
And I'm like, yes, that was like the permission I needed to go be a fucking badass or whatever I want to do, because it's important. It's important to be able to combine the two. Otherwise, yeah, it's just perfect. You just described it perfectly. I don't really need to say much more about that. But it's yeah, you should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it, because then you're acting virtuously, and you're going to get further in life because you've balanced yourself out. You've got that aggression, but you've got the compassion.
Too right, man. Too right. And I like you talked about alignment earlier, and when you have that gut feeling that I really want to explore that. I think we should talk about that more in another podcast, or even just off air, and just dissect it a bit more in terms of having that gut feeling. But when we're talking about this kind of stuff, it 1,000,000% speaks to me, like 1,000,000%, where it's like, okay, like you can there's a reason, like I can say that the way I was in terms of being like training and pushing myself and whatever, that's there, but then you have to learn to quell that and be like, okay, keep it, but then use it at certain times, right? Like, but then again, like back then it was constant reps in that one thing, and then you come away from it and you have to almost unlock it, like you said, give yourself permission to do that thing again.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's it's definitely part of who we are, and it's as we go forward into the stuff we're talking about right now, it's about fully understanding the implications of being there all the time. And I've had conversations with very close friends of mine about how you can't be there all the time. You simply can't. Like thinking that it's right. It's like that absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? You can't be that juggernaut 24/7. You have to have the ability to flip the switch, both on and off, and consciously know that it's for the betterment of both to have yin and yang. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're somebody who just constantly redlines, yeah, you're going to be very good at redlining, but at the end of the day, like you need to run low RPM sometimes as well. It's just as important.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I mean, it's a basic. It's a basic requirement from our physiology as well to keep ourselves healthy and moving forward. Is like we don't need any help getting stressed. There's we're kind of predisposed to experience stress, but what we need to be able to do is be able to bring ourselves back to that low RPM level. I like how you say that, the low RPMs. You got to rev it right back down. You got to take it easy, and that's a skill to learn over time, because it's natural in our evolution to respond to stressful scenarios, because we need to learn them. We need to make sure that we don't find ourselves in those situations again. But then being able to tone down in our modern environment is where the problem is. We just don't have that capacity. We don't know how to switch off. So we need to learn how to enter relaxation states, and we need to learn how to enter states where we do stress ourselves. That stress we put on ourselves ends up being a good thing, because stress is a good thing. We need stress in our life. It helps us, like, for example, training is a stress. We need that physical stress. Otherwise, we're not going to get physically fitter. But then where the gains are made is when we're recovering, right? So that applies across the board in all of life. You can't be going like that juggernaut 100% of the time and not know how to switch off from that, because you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out very, very quickly. And I've always kind of had the idea that the people, like, so for example, in terms of people I look up to, like, I mean, like, I don't care about celebrities or anything like that, right? But there's, like, in terms of people I look up to and the success that they've had, and the image that I see of them, right? Because you're never going to know them personally, but the image that I have of, say, is of pure success is something like Roger Federer, because he is somebody who is just, like, in this freakish way, has got his head screwed on in what it appears to be like his head is screwed on better than any person who's ever been at his level, right? Like, the best in the world, has this amazing relationship with the game that he plays, loves it so much. The pressure, if it ever gets to him, he's able to deal with it. who is able to continually excel, continually adapt, and he, like, he looks like he's got a happy family life and all that kind of stuff. Everything is balanced, and like that's unbelievable. To be able to have that, he's got, like, obviously on the court, he's balletic, as people would say, but there's a level of monstrousness that's there as well. You're not successful like that if you aren't a monster as well. So he's got that perfect balance between his temperament, his personal life, and his professional life. That's what it all looks like, and that to me is like, that's true success. You've got a lot of people like, say John Jones, for example, unbelievable talent in the ring, but then complete wild card outside of it, and is like, is that successful? Is like, that in the bigger picture, and so it's like, that ability to switch those nodes from one end of like juggernaut to the other, of being calm, cool, Buddha, collected. That's like in a way, that's a prerequisite to being successful. In the long term.
You can strip it back to this, right? So we know that the musculoskeletal system, each muscle has an action and a function or whatever, right? But if we're outsourcing because one muscle can't fully do its job, then the next thing down the chain has to carry the slack, right? That one bicep or whatever muscle you can put the name to isn't fully actualizing. So you're having to bleed into the next thing to make it happen, right? And that's misalignment to a T, right? That's where the body isn't able to fully kind of direct itself in one direction. So it has to use the next guy who isn't really that guy. Like he shouldn't really be used in that direction. So exactly. the win is to fully understand how this is supposed to work, get it to a place where it works like that, and then let it be, and then flip the switch between two. You know what I mean? Like kind of fully exploring the rage of training hard, then fully exploring the calmness of meditation, and then having the duality of be able to do both, because there's a time and a place to act on both. But if you're constantly in one mode, you're not going to be aroused enough to fully take advantage when you need to, and also you're going to be too raging to the point where you burn yourself out. You know what I mean? You need to have understanding of both, and I think it only comes from doing. Like this theme of this podcast is kind of just doing, right? And you will have the growth, but the end piece of it, piece of that puzzle, is to say that you need to recognize and you need to be aware of what signals you're getting. And I think the more you lose yourself in that awareness, the more you find yourself in that awareness, the clearer the road becomes. Yeah.
Completely, man. Exactly. And you just learn to toggle between the two settings. And the only way you learn is by doing, and you're going to make those mistakes. Those mistakes help you course correct.
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah, man. I think hopefully if people out there kind of listen to this and they have their own, I think I touched on this a little bit last week, like their own ideas of this, their own experiences within what we've been talking about. It'd be great to hear. It'd be great to hear like what's your duality, and what things have you become aware of in yourself, and what's that look like? And like physical manifestation is a massive thing. Like I'm a different human to what I was before, to who I was before, and not just the mentality, but the awareness, but the actual physical being. Like that's it's an actual, like when people say the word transformation, it's completely the same thing. Like this is my next form. You know what I mean? Like that's that Dragon Ball Z kind of way of saying it. Yeah, man. That's it.
True transformation.
Yeah. Achieve my next level.
We're going to see you with yellow hair next one.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. My beard down to my ankles. Just let's go.
You're going to be Super Saiyan brown.
Super Saiyan. I'd love to, bro. I'd love to. That's that'll happen. Well, that'll happen for sure. Yeah, man.
That'd be legit.
It's cool.
But
It's
shall
cool.
we take the questions that we received this week?
Yeah, man. That would be cool. That would be cool. Let's get into that.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions. Who Umar is from your client, right?
Yeah, Hemel, long-term client of mine. Last 3 years, he was one of my first clients at UP,
Mm,
and we worked together for a long time. And then during lockdown, now I reached out and I just said, look, like, where are you at? We've been talking behind the scenes for a little bit of time, and he'd been working quite busily. And now he's got a bit more time, and yeah, we've been training over Skype for the last 6 weeks, I want to say
cool.
6, 7 weeks, and he's been making some crazy gains, doing really, really well. Outlined like I think he would agree that there's it's interesting because the more I'm studying with Jordan Shallow right now, the more I'm understanding that there's different ways of tackling certain kinds of body types, and
Mhm.
we touched on this in one of the weeks of the course just briefly, but genetic predispositions to being in specific ways. And I
Mhm.
think it's helping me understand, like, as a coach, that if I have a certain client in front of me, obviously it's personal, it's very personal to the person, but if you are a taller, I'm going to say, Indian client of mine, taller, longer limbs, and you might be able to say this because you're taller, you've got longer limbs. Like, same thing with Sam, right? It's a case where, training wise, I think stability aspects, stability training in the way that we kind of do it with exercises that elicit instability, I think are
Mm.
massively beneficial, whether it be stability of the core, stability of the hips, stability of the shoulders, of the spine. I think that's a really interesting thing that we can kind of get into maybe in a future podcast, because we'll get into his question after I stop waffling. But like just having him as a client really taught me a lot, and it's helped me to see my growth, in the sense that before I would have trained him same as I would have trained any guy, but
Mm.
I would have trained him with, like, pushing him on muscles of his chest and his back and the things that he wants, but the underlying subcontext, the subtext behind this is that the kind of client he is requires these prerequisites before he starts pushing himself with a heavy barbell. And
Yep.
that's what this time has now taught me, is that we can do the mobility work, but he's actually hypermobile in some ways. He's actually
Mm.
very, very mobile in some ways. In some ways, he's very under supported. So that's where the stability comes in. But now
Mhm.
he's getting that. He's getting crazy strong. We're working on things like breathing techniques and whatever. So he's doing so well. He's doing so well. Like, last couple of weeks, things like his push-ups, a simple thing, but something that he's taken a lot of pride in just smashing. He's done so well with, and it's come from us understanding the component parts of the exercise, and
Yep.
building kind of the rigidity in certain areas, building the stability in certain areas, and then just steamrolling it, man. His strength has come on so well. So I just want to give him a shout out along with his
Yeah,
question.
big time.
So
Respect.
great work, man. Great work. Yeah. So his question, what was his first question? His question was talking about.
So the first question was handling a naughty weekend of eating bad food. So it was basically about the way I understood it was,
Give me
yeah,
one
go.
second. I smell some burning. I don't know why. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I think you better take care of that. I'll just I'll just talk away. So the question was, so I think the frame that is coming from is if you've had a naughty weekend, I put in inverted commas, of eating bad food, bad I put in inverted commas, how do you recover from it, and how do you handle it? That's what I'm getting from it.
Yeah, we're all good. We're all good.
Yeah, we're all good. Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. So I was just explaining the question, and so yeah, I'll start us off, and then start us off with an answer, and then you can chime in. So obviously, like so Umar knows exactly where this question is coming from, but I thought he also had a lot of good wider things that we could which are kind of talk about, which we could kind of which are baked into the question, and. So first of all, was like in terms of how it's framed, like naughty and bad. So what's interesting about that is like the kind of language that you use around the food that you eat, how that can make you feel, and how that can affect the results that you're having. So if we're saying you're having a naughty weekend, when something is taboo, it makes us want to do it even more. It's always the way. It's like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Oh, but now it makes me want to do it, right? And then saying something is bad, there's associations with that which suggests that you're not happy with the decision you made. And when something is bad, what is that normally associated with? That's normally associated with being punished for it and then feeling guilty around that. So the first thing I want to say about it is there is no bad. There's a spectrum of foods that we could eat, and they should belong on a spectrum of basically eat more or eat less. Eat less of. If we define them as good or bad, when we're stringent like that, it doesn't help our psyche around the kind of goals that we have, right? So we want to change the language we use around the foods that we eat to, I want to eat more of these kinds of foods and I want to eat less of these kinds of foods. So one of the ways to help yourself is also to be conscious of the choices that you're making. So if you finish the weekend and you're like, oh, you know what, I just ate a bunch of foods that I feel like I shouldn't have eaten, and you only realize that at the end, then yeah, you're going to feel bad about it and you're going to feel like you've fallen off the wagon. You're going to punish yourself for it. And it's long term, it's not serving you if you're going to go through that yo-yo. Whereas if before you've had that, if it's a binge, before you've had that, you've made the conscious choice to have that binge. When you've done that, you can be a lot happier with it, and it makes it a lot easier for you to stay on track long term. So being conscious of the choice that you're making is vital. So we talk about awareness a lot on this podcast, and that's a big part of this as well. You want to be aware of the foods that you're consuming, and you want to be aware of the decisions that you're making around the foods that you're consuming. So you know that you're staying long term on your righteous path, basically. And like, kind of don't lie to yourself about it as well. That's not going to help you out, because if like it's like the intuition we talked about today. If you're making a decision and to eat these bad foods and you're telling yourself you're happy with it, but really deep down you're not, that's also going to serve towards feeling like guilty and wanting to kind of punish yourself around the foods you're eating as well. So listen to your gut and make a good decision based on being fully aware of whether this aligns with your the kind of decision you want to make, and whether this aligns with where you see yourself. And the key to handling that is also like, seeing the bigger picture, because we're not going to live 100% eating only the foods we should eat and completely avoiding foods we feel like we should avoid. It's going to be that spectrum applies to how often we consume those kinds of foods as well. So kind of give yourself a rule to follow. Because 100% all in, all or nothing doesn't do the trick. So you want to say like, okay, if you're eating 3 square meals a day, that's 21 meals in a week. Then what you can decide to do is 10 to 15% of those meals, you're saying to yourself, I can eat whatever I want. So that's say 3 meals a week, and you are making a conscious decision. It's in line with your goals. It's in line with say, if you're trying to lose weight, it's in line with your calorie intake, but you've eaten whatever you wanted to, so you're able to sustain that. And that's super important as well, because otherwise you're going to feel like your efforts are futile. You want to make it so that it's in line. You're just basically aware of how much you're consuming. You're aware of how it fits in with your goals, and then making those decisions, and you're still allowed to eat those foods which you eat less of, which are in the eat less category, and still moving forward. So there's no guilt attached to it. There's no punishment attached to it. You're still moving forward. And there was one more thing that I wanted to say about that, which was, like if it's to do with, if your goal is also around losing body weight, then you had a gluttonous weekend, you want to make sure that the rest of the week you're in that calorie deficit. And how do you make
Mm.
sure you're in a calorie deficit? You've got to be aware of what you're consuming, right? So if the goal is to lose weight, then you've got to make the decision to be aware of what you're consuming other times as well, to make sure that you are in that calorie deficit to be able to lose weight. Otherwise, that weekend is going to ruin all the gains that you're constantly making. So overall, is like, just get back to know what is best for you, what is right for your goal. Be very aware, and if you're going to have weekends where you're eating those kinds of foods which aren't in alignment with your goal, and you're going to be over consuming them, then make sure it's a conscious decision, and make sure it's something you can, when you finish doing that, you're happy with at the end of it, and you're still moving forward.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally agree. It's like, see the lesson in the day. So see the lesson in that meal at the same time as well. It's like, I know that when I have fish and greens, or fish and vegetables, the lesson is that, okay, I've done well for myself, but the lesson probably, the other side of it is that I'll probably be hungry later, and I need to balance that out with having more volume in certain meals and whatever. So it's not as linear as to say, this is the food that's going to be good or bad, right? Like,
Exactly.
there's pluses and minuses and everything else. One of the things you touched on, but then being aware of, less of these foods and more of these foods, I completely resonate with that, because it's in accordance with your goal. Like, am I what do I want to achieve? And I know I'm his trainer. He wants to see more muscle. He wants to be able to be in the presence of less body fat. So all of the things that we're doing in terms of his training are aligned with that. But now it's a case that, can I make my diet in the same way? And one of my mates I used to work with at UP as well. Man, so thankful. I've got to say thank you to UP to making me, for exposing me to all these cool people. Even yourself, like, you worked around the corner for me, right? And I didn't. Well, actually, no, I moved before you
Yeah,
started working there, I think.
yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah, obviously, I knew you from there. Um,
From Jits, isn't
After,
it?
yeah,
Yeah,
from Jits, we found out that I used to work there. But
yeah,
yeah, Elliot Hassoun. I shared his Instagram post yesterday. Shout out to Elliot, great trainer. He said something yesterday which I thought was a really interesting take, and it resonates with this a little bit. So he was saying, like, certain members of society will have restrictions on not drinking alcohol, for instance, or not eating pork, for instance, or not eating meat, for instance, right? So, like, that's their quote unquote, like, belief, right? Their belief, their religion. They kind of they put a lot of weight on not being a person who would do this, right? So the way he put it in his post, I thought was great. Was that if you're at a restaurant and you see the menu and the menu has alcohol in it, and you're not somebody who drinks alcohol, then you just turn the page. Like, I don't associate with that. So
yeah,
I just turn the page. Like, it's not going to be today. Oh, I'm gonna go against everything that I've always believed in to then just flip the script on myself, right? Like, that. So what his point was that if you're on this journey of losing body fat, then for a period of time you're going to have to misweight your life a little bit toward, okay, I'm not somebody who constantly will go towards the dessert section. I'm not somebody who constantly will go towards having high sugar or processed foods. You know what I mean? I need to be somebody who is looking at the options of the menu which are easy for me to digest, like fish, like chicken, like, I'm getting higher nutritional value. So where are the vegetables? You know what I mean? Like, I need to fuel myself post workout or pre workout or whatever. So what's the best thing I can use for that? It's probably not going to be a massive steak with loads of, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not
chips.
easy to digest. Yeah, exactly, chips or whatever. There's a time and a place. You know what I mean? Like, the refeed meal, maybe chips and steak. You know what I mean? But the day to day kind of working of it, let's be in alignment with where we want to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm supposed to. Yeah, so just thought it was a different take on just a different angle. I think that's really what we need to do, is show people as many different perspectives, and whichever one you align with the most, we can
Yeah,
have a chat about and we can kind of talk about. You know what I mean?
completely. Awareness, alignment, and action.
Boom.
Boom. That's what it is. It's great. And then second one that Hemel had for us, which is a good one, another thing that people struggle with, I find broadly speaking on a universal level. So like work gets hectic and you don't find the time to focus on the right nutrition or the sleep or the exercise. So what should be your first priority and how do you step back into your norm? So I'll let you start with this. And,
Cool, man.
and
Yeah, so Hemel kind of put it, what were the parameters that he outlined? So sleep, food, training.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would say we got to add a fourth parameter to that, and that fourth parameter is the one that I want him to focus on, and that is awareness. That is awareness of, okay, where are we? So we've been through a really busy day, we've been through a really busy / week / stress is there because of lockdown, because of coronavirus, because of social distancing. All these things, they have to be taken into account, right? So I'm in a place where I'm highly stressed. I've just finished a work week. I'm really tired, and I'm still somebody who wants to get myself in line. So that's the first thing. I think if you're aware of that, you can go forward with more power and be like, yeah, I'm still somebody who wants to fight the good fight, in spite of all these things. You know what I mean, in spite of all these things that are kind of trying to pull me off my track. No, I'm going to be strong to the end, and like stick to my guns, and know that I need to display willpower right now. Yeah, just being aware of that. I think just framing it like that in my own mind is super powerful. Like we're gonna get to the other variables, but I think that's the first thing, is to frame it the right way and say that I'm in a position of stress, but I am going to do the right thing, and then we can kind of segue off into the other variables. What did you think? What did you think to that, G?
Yeah, fully is like awareness again comes back to that intuition as well. Train your ability to pick up on your intuition, because even if you're stressed out, it's more difficult for you to make a good decision. So you want to really just kind of take a step back for a second and just ask yourself truly, what's a good decision for me to make right now? And you do that, your body tells you. Your body will tell you. You just have to really first like become aware of it and align yourself with it. And when that is a struggle, align with your goal. Always have that. This is why we keep talking about always have that end goal in mind, so that in every decision you make right now is serving that end goal. So the angle that I wanted to come at it was from like, if you are in the thick of it as well, you're having a tough time kind of keeping yourself aligned with doing the right thing for your goal, because work is super busy, it's taking up a lot of your time. Then in terms of those three things that you talked about, nutrition, exercise, and sleep, there's no hard and fast rules of how you approach it. We'll get to that. But if we wanted to look at hard and fast rules, then sleep is basically the foundation for everything. It's the foundation for health. It's the foundation for performance. So if you're struggling with getting the time for having good nutrition, having exercise, at least try and start off with, anybody should try and start off with sleep first and foremost. Nailing that, because getting the right recovery in means we're better off taking on the day that's coming up in front of us, which is, if we're in the thick of it, so it's still going to be an intense day. We need to be able to switch off from the day we just had, recover, and then be able to go hard the next day. And sleep is the best way to do that. It will also help you manage your intake of food, because if we're sleeping well, then it means we don't overeat, we don't stress eat, we don't respond negatively to stresses in front of us as well. So when we are stressed out, it's easier for us to be on a short leash in terms of our temperament and in terms of our decision-making processes. Sleep will help you fix those, eliminate the potential for those deficits. So and then in terms of performance, you need to be performing well because work is hard. So try and prioritize sleep, because sleep is where you do your repair, is where you do your memory consolidation, because you probably need to remember some good stuff that you just did so that you can improve next time. And it's going to help you with your problem solving abilities as well. It's going to bring you to a higher state to be able to solve the problems that are in front of you at work. So if you're going to prioritize anything, hard and fast rule is, I would say, start with sleep. The thing is, life isn't as straightforward as that, because we've got all these other variables as well. So it could be that it's very difficult to follow that. So where do you start? The simple answer is start where you can. So if it's nutrition, then work on that, because that's going to help you make good decisions. That's going to help you with your performance as well. Because if you're fueling yourself with the right food, you're going to feel better. You're going to have the energy to carry on through. Now, if it's not nutrition, make it exercise. Um, get yourself to the gym, or get yourself doing whatever activity that is you do, which helps you feel replenished so that you can be better at work as well. So it's basically finding the activity that works, that you can commit to. It will come down to the tricky thing is in times like that is we always talk about finding time. The truth is you're going to have to learn how to make time. You always kind of have to look at your schedule and be like, okay, times are busy. I'm going to have to make this work somehow. We do have to implement that level of discipline as well. We do have to implement making time rather than trying to find time. Because if we're always finding time, that means we're being reactive. But if we're making time, that means we're being proactive, and we're going to feel better off just by making that good decision as well. So we've got to make the time. Then in terms of the caveat for that is like, okay, if I don't have a lot of time, then when it comes to, let's say, nutrition, say you're used to making your own foods, or you pop out to the store and you buy your lunch and then eat it on the go. If there's literally no time for that kind of thing, then let's get creative with the decisions around good nutrition. So you might want to, for a period of time, hire a company that is delivering healthy food to your door, healthy, ready-made food to your door. If you're London-based, we're lucky because there's plenty of places, there's plenty of companies I've opened up that have started doing that kind of thing. So for a week, you can have your meals delivered to you, ready to eat, and you're still in line with your goals that you're trying to achieve. If it's going to be exercise, and say you're normally training for 60 minutes a day or 60 minutes at a time, but you just feel like you can't afford that time. All right, cool, 20 minutes, whatever you can get in, because getting something in is better than getting nothing in. The fact that you made a decision to do something is going to make you feel better. And then actually doing that thing, exercise, is going to help you in terms of your work performance as well, but it's going to help you blow off some steam, and you're getting fitter. So getting something in is better than getting nothing, because we've talked about incremental gains. Then 20 minutes of exercise is definitely going to be better than getting nothing if you can't manage a normal workout. And then if you know that sleep is going to be compromised, you've got you're normally used to sleeping between 7 and 9 hours. Let's just say most people don't even sleep 7 hours, but let's just say you're in that category, but then you're only going to get about 6 hours of sleep. Okay, fine. Then you want to make sure that the quality of your sleep is going to be more on point. And the way to do that is to have a good routine around going to sleep. So being able to get better at switching off before you go to bed. It's those relaxation techniques. So it could be a slow breathing technique. So double the exhale of the inhale. So say breathing in for 5 seconds, breathing out for 10 seconds. That's one thing. Basically, the slower the exhale, the more we enter that calm state of our calm resting state of our body, of our nervous system, and then that's going to help us recover. It could be basically switching off all lights, making sure overhead lights are off or dimmed right down, because light stimulates us to stay awake. So keeping that low in the hour building up to bed. Trying not to look at screens. Bright lights basically just completely mess up with your ability to fall asleep. And doing something that helps you get into a relaxed state of mind. And if you don't have those things, then get in touch. We'll help you figure out what those things are. Mm-hmm. So that's how you want to approach those things. It's basically find the thing that's going to help you get back on the bandwagon and stay on the bandwagon. And no matter what kind of capacity that you can, you just do it. And just by making good decisions and being proactive rather than reactive puts you in a much better state of mind, and rather than trying to react to everything. So it's a process, and then keep learning from that process. You get better and better and better at it, and you keep raising your baseline so that you're better able to handle these stressful situations and stressful periods where kind of everything goes out the window.
Too right, man. Too right. I think that's a really, really great summary of all of those points. I know him or somebody that would listen to that. and take a lot from it. So definitely covered it well, man. Definitely covered it well for sure.
Respect. And thanks for the questions, Emil. Well, I think
For sure, man.
this what's great about them is when we get questions in, we're it's not just helping that one person, it's going to help a lot of other people because there's stuff in there which other people might not have thought about, but it's going to resonate with them. And it's just it just applies to life in general. So yeah, keep them coming.
Yeah. Just a random kind of finishing point on this. In terms of learning more about questions that you have. I've been somebody who's always had loads of questions. I know, Grin, you're the same. This is why we kind of go through further study. When we go through further study, it's a chance for us to ask our mentors and kind of go and subscribe so we can learn, so we can pass the knowledge on to you guys, right? And recently, I've taken like 2 different mentorships. One of them I've mentioned in the past, which is Prescript Level 1, and that's with Jordan Shallow, and that's going amazing. Like, I was going to put up a story, Insta story, which I'll do later on today, from his week 6, and it was he actually, amidst all the crazy knowledge this guy starts dropping, he references Recess. Did you watch Recess when you were little?
Recess, no.
Recess, dude, Recess was the shit, man. It was on Disney Channel. Like TJ Detweiler and Vince LaSalle, like such a sick show. I've got to put it on for you sometime. Like you've got to come out with this. It was just a cartoon show, right? But this is like when it makes it really good is when your teacher is somebody you can relate to, right? And you can kind of have those oh shit like moments where they're on the same page, right? You're aligned, yeah. And that's kind of what I get from him in that sense, where you can get a lot of different teachers, and they can teach you amazing stuff, right? But if it's not in a way that you can go away and then apply, and you can go away and see how you can take one principle and apply it to 10 different things, then I think the value is just there in that one thing, as opposed to what I'm seeing the value from Prescript, from the way Jordan teaches, right, is across the board. Like, it really is across the board, and it really resonates with me as a coach, as a PT. And I think it's valuing clients at the same time. So yeah, massive shout out there. And I can say that if anybody has any questions about it, drop us a message. I'll be able to help you out with understanding a bit more about it. And you couldn't recommend it highly enough. And then the second mentorship is one I'm doing with a guy called Nick Daniel. And he's somebody that I worked with when I was at UP. So Nick and I have known each other for the last 3 and a bit years. Nick has always been a super cool guy. Like, I remember being a junior at UP. And when you're a junior at UP, you kind of almost like you're bottom of the rung, right? You're bottom of the rung, and you're just like your towel, you're folding towels, and you're making shakes, and you're doing all the things that you should be doing, right? You're doing all the things that kind of
shoes.
Carry the dumbbells, like get on that shit, right? And it's good, but like Nick was always somebody who, even though I was a junior, I remember I think my 3rd week at UP, he took me to Muscle Works, and we just went there, we trained, had a great time, like kind of walked there, walked back. It was awesome. It was really, really cool. So he's always been somebody who's just like, regardless of like his station was always like, boom, Nick Daniel. Like, I remember kind of going in there, but oh shit, that's Nick Daniel. And I follow him on Instagram and followed him kind of like through some of the stuff that I've seen him. And I'd actually been to UP, the camps at UP, and he would teach those, and they were amazing. They were really, really great. A mad experience. On this podcast, I've got to tell the story of when we did the leg day camp with Nick Daniel, and kind of what it was, just pure violence, man. Pure violence. It was madness, absolute madness. But that'll be a story for another time, definitely. And,
man, I can't wait to hear that.
I'm going to shout out Nick in that one as well. And so his mentorship that he's doing right now on his brand Fitness Rebels is brilliant. Like, we just went through the first week, and we've gone through breathing mechanics, and it was mad. Like, today, explaining some of it to TJ, and he's just like, "Whoa, shit! This is really big stuff. Like how it ties into posture, and how it ties into everything, right? Like, and Nick does things in a way that makes things really easy to understand. Like, I'm somebody who, like, if you're going to explain something to me, please explain it like I'm proper thick. Like, just tell me all the things and make it so it's like super easy to understand. Because I don't I can then go away and like build on the complexities of it. But Nick is really good at that as a coach, as a mentor, as somebody who can like really cut through all the bullshit and be like, this is what it's about. This is all it's talking about. So take this away from it, know this bit, and you can apply it straight away. Great. And that's yeah, he does that so well, man. He does that so well. So yeah, enjoying his take on what he learns, and yeah, like I said, it's helping me explain things to, like, I had sessions with my clients Ash and Mario this morning, and we went through like the breathing mechanics stuff that I learned there, and now they understand it, and that's like so cool to just be the medium of passing this knowledge on and seeing your clients run with it and being like, oh shit, light bulbs going off everywhere. This is, yeah, it's really fun, man. So yeah, big shout out to those two guys. Nothing but good stuff.
Yeah, quality, man. I remember, because funny thing is, I met Nick as well. He didn't realize that we knew each other until after we did the first podcast, and I started posting about it. And so what was really interesting is like his background in bodybuilding and physique and stuff. And then I met him on a basically NKT, like neurokinetic therapy course, which is about addressing dysfunctions in the body with a neurological approach. And so he's gonna, like, him melding what he knows from the background that he's come from with this stuff. And I think he's training to be an osteopath right now as well. He's gonna have a very unique, very, very cool view on everything, and combined with the way you say he's able to explain stuff, that you need people like that. So that's gonna be epic. So I remember we finished the course, and so at this stage I was assisting the course, and he was taking the second level of NKT. And then, we just ended up walking down to the tube station, and then we were basically in South Kent tube station for like an hour and a half. Like, I think he's supposed to take the Piccadilly line, I'm supposed to take the District line. But we stood there, and we were just talking, we were just discussing about different methodologies, and the different methodologies purporting to be the right way to do stuff. And it was like, well, is it the right way? Can you not be achieved in a different way? And it was just, we just stood there for ages, and we didn't even realize how long it was. And we were just having that conversation, and it was just cool. It's just good to have those kinds of conversations with people like that. So that was, that's just like a lasting memory.
He's a good guy, man. He's a good guy. He's like, he definitely has. He knows who he is. You know what I mean? That's a sick thing about Nick. And about yourself, about Jordan, about all these people, is that they're just very clear on the message they want to give out. And I think it's always about like fully understanding something. And that's like, both of them are, Matt and yourself, academic to the core, right? Like that's all of you. And then like open-mindedness and seeing kind of what's there and questioning things and going back and learning more and investing your time, investing your money in people that can move you forward. I think it's super necessary, man. Super necessary. There we go.
Yeah.
Dropped it again. Straight every podcast, man.
We were never going to get it through without dropping that in, but I'm glad that made its way through. It is super necessary. I mean, the way you get better is by surrounding yourself with people who make you better, and you have to actively go looking for them. So you've actively gone looking for Jordan Charles and for Nick, and you have to do that. And it's like getting those mentorships, because that's what's going to make you better, and just having that appetite for what they're talking about. And it's important to delve that far, because the way I look at it is like, you can't just take what you learn and then go and tell it to the next person without understanding the level below it. You have to at least understand the deeper levels. And I think I've said this before to you as well, which is I just end up liking taking things deeper so that I have a better understanding of that surface level explanation. Because if I don't do that, then what do I know really? I don't own that knowledge. I feel like I have to own that knowledge. And I've like done stuff in the past where I was like, I didn't really own that knowledge. I didn't feel like I was confident enough delivering something because I didn't feel like I owned that knowledge. Now it's like a double-edged thing, which is you kind of have to just go out there and put yourself out there without fully knowing the thing, so that you are challenged, but at the same time is like not putting something out there that you really don't have an idea of what you're talking about, which could be bad for people, you know. So it's like, okay, I feel like I've never done the second thing, whereas like I haven't owned the knowledge enough, but if I've gone and talked about it and put it out there that it's been bad, it's always been trying to err on the side of caution, but also take it, go a layer deeper, then put it out there, and then see how much I really know about it. Because when you put it out there live, clients going to ask you questions about it, your colleagues are going to ask you questions about it. Then this is what I love about doing this podcast with you as well. There's a lot of stuff here which I'm learning to express for the first time, because you ask a certain question or you start talking about something and it triggers something in me. And it's like, oh yeah, that would be a good thing to talk about. And like, I don't give a fuck if I fumble around and fuck it up. That's part of the process. And so I don't always feel comfortable with what I'm saying, but I know it's coming from a place which is like deeper down, and is speaking some level of truth. I just need to learn how to communicate that better. So it's the process.
The process. Yeah, man. You're totally right. Totally right. There's so many truths in that. And I think the thing I can say on that is because you know yourself, you're genuine, right? You're genuine, you want to help people, and you're never going to advise something in a way that's going to try and hurt somebody, right? But you'll always there'll always be a rhyme and a reason. But then when you align with more and more people that have that same rhyme and a reason, that same cause, you end up kind of, like you said this once in your in the previous podcast, you end up kind of leaving things behind. Like you end up distilling your method and saying, okay, but I don't need this anymore, I don't need that anymore, but I can take 2% of that and 5% of this, and before you know it, you've got a very competent working model. And that's super important, I think, and that's what we kind of give each other, in the sense that you can validate by asking similar questions and by landing on the same kind of the same words and the same phrases. Like we talk about awareness and all this kind of stuff. It just shows that there is you need to be there. You know what I mean? That's where it's happening. And then it's the same thing with a lot of the things that study wise. When the industry kind of moves in a specific direction, then you've got to align yourself with that, and it just helps. It just helps move you forward, move clients forward, and everyone just it's the place where we need to be at. You know what I mean? As a collective.
Yeah, fully, man. And talking about making mistakes and not giving a fuck, I left that up and I forgot the E.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Whatever, man. Whatever.
Let's go. Just start, and then you'll figure it out. Yeah, man, you'll figure it out.
Learning that I can't spell.
I was tripping when I had to type all those words for my name this time. I was like, please make sure I've spelled it right. I don't have to exit the studio or some shit. I don't even know how it's gonna work. But yeah, man.
Brilliant, man. All right, let's call it there, yeah?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the longest one yet, isn't it?
It might be. I don't know if like one of them 2:15 or something, but yeah, it's getting there. Okay. It's getting there.
Smooth, man. Smooth.
I appreciate it, bro. There's a lot of good stuff that was shared there.
Yeah, man, it was fun. It was really good. Really good. Keep the questions coming in, and yeah, we'll look forward to doing another one of these in a week's time.
Yeah, exactly. The best way to do that is find us on Instagram. I'm at GSandhu, GSANDHU coach. And Umar, you are at?
Yeah, my name on Instagram, Umar Malik, UMAR MALIK, all one word, _91.
Boom. Best ways to field our questions. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. Brother, I will catch you next time.
Yeah, buddy. Speak to you soon. Cool, man.